what is evil unless it's the perversion of something that is ultimately good. Okay? So I think atheism has a problem defining evil, number one. Number two, even if the atheist admits that evil is real, and if you don't, then I think Christian theism is superior. Christian theism can look at the Ebola sufferer and say that is a product of evil. That's not the way things ought to be. If the atheist can't call that evil, then I think the Christian is on higher moral ground right there to be able to say that is really evil. That's number one. But number two, if the atheist admits that evil is real, what solution do you have for it? Seems to me that in the end, if Bertrand Russell is right, if atheism is right, then evil and human suffering wins. The universe dies. And I think the Apostle Paul was onto something when he said, if the dead are not raised, if there's no life after death, then let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. Which makes me wonder why so many secular humanists come together and have this driving force in life to better the world. Hey, this world's going to blow up and cease to exist if you guys are right. Now, if the God of the Bible exists, and he said that I would say Bertrand Russell's life was not meaningful. No, I believe it was very meaningful, because I believe this life is a test. I believe that human beings are eternal beings. I believe that the things we do in this life will have eternal consequences. So I do believe that Bertrand Russell's life was meaningful. However, by Bertrand Russell's own words, I think we see that there was no ultimate meaning for his life, if his views were correct. But my problem is, if there's no ultimate meaning, well, what's the big deal? I mean, it was basically you make a lot of money, you feed a lot of people, you build a lot of buildings, and then eventually the whole universe dies. If there's no ultimate meaning, it seems to me being proud of finding meaning in buying a brand new Corvette or helping somebody in need, in the end, it didn't amount to anything. So I think this is more than an appeal to emotion here. I think this is something very important. And I think when atheists get together and have a passion to argue against the existence of the God of the Bible, I think they're actually living inconsistently with their belief system, and they'd be more consistent if they just say, well, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. So I think if there's no meaning with a capital M, then you could take all the meanings with little m's and just toss them aside, because in the end, total non-existence, that's all there is. And religious confusions. This seems to create the fallacy, if they all disagree, they must all be wrong. Okay? In fact, I would agree with the 1961 Turcaso versus Watkins Supreme Court decision that even secular humanism is in some sense religious. So if you want to say Christianity and the other religions all disagree, therefore they must all be false, we'll throw atheism in there too. But the fact of the matter is, just because you got 5 guys who disagree on something doesn't mean they're all wrong. One of them might be right. Now, I provided some real good evidence that theism is correct. He disagrees, Jeff disagrees with me, but I think I've made a really good case. Let me just talk a little bit about my case. The origin of the universe. There's only a few options here. Either the universe is eternal. When the Big Bang model popped on the scene, that was a defeat for atheism. And I would like to see more honest atheists admit that, or agnostics admit that, like Robert Jastrow, who said that when scientists have scaled the highest mountains, they got there and found a band of theologians waiting for them for several centuries. Okay? I would like to see a little bit more honesty on that. When science showed that the universe had a beginning, that was a defeat. Not a victory, a defeat for atheism. So throw out the eternal universe. And then this idea that the universe popped into existence totally without a cause, he says that atheists don't hold to that. I heard it from Quentin Smith's mouth. And Quentin Smith is one of the leading atheist philosophers today. And in fact, Jeff attended that as well. Others would argue maybe it had a beginning, but it caused its own beginning. That's impossible. That's absurd. For something to cause its own existence, it would have to pre-exist its own existence in order to bring its own existence about. Okay? Many pantheists would argue the universe is not an illusion. I don't think we need to debate that point. I think we're both in the same camp here, that there is a real universe. And so I think that by far the evidence points in the favor of the universe being caused to exist by an eternal, uncaused cause.
Okay, once again, I'd like to begin by going through Dr. Fernandes' case for theism and then turn to my case for naturalism. First, I made the point that some of his case seems to me to be nothing more than an appeal to emotion. I said that the alleged absurdity of life without God is nothing more than an appeal to emotion, and I'm going to deal with that when I get into his case. We didn't really hear, or at least I didn't hear anything at all in his last speech about morality or the sanctity of human life. And I actually didn't hear anything at all about my argument that his case is not a cumulative case for theism. I just think this is obvious. I don't think that each of his arguments establishes the God of theism. Yeah, if they were true, they would show that some sort of supernatural being exists, but that's not the same thing as theism. And so he doesn't have a cumulative case for theism. Of course, if that's all I said, it would still be possible that naturalism wasn't true either. I need to refute some of the arguments that he's given to be able to maintain that naturalism is true, and I want to do that right now. He says that the beginning of the universe was a victory for theism. I couldn't disagree more with that. I think this sounds like the sort of thing that John Templeton's money machine has made possible. The amount of research he's pumped into books and newspaper articles claiming that science has found God. Nothing's really happened new in science. Yeah, we now believe that the Big Bang Theory is true, but it's not like we have any new substantive evidence. When I believed in God, the last time I debated Dr. Fernandes, I believed in God. I was a theistic evolutionist. I believed in Big Bang cosmology then. Then I became an agnostic, and I still believe Big Bang cosmology. And now I'm an atheist and a naturalist, and I believe in the Big Bang model. Not once in all of those different stages of my life have I ever thought that the Big Bang Theory provides evidence for theism. I didn't even think that was when I was a theist. And he says, yeah, but Quentin Smith says that if you're an atheist or a naturalist and you accept the Big Bang Theory, then you have to believe it came out of nothing. And this is simply false, because I corresponded privately with Quentin Smith, as well as almost every other atheist philosopher in the United States, Canada, England, and Australia, and I conducted a non-scientific poll, and I'm here to tell you that unanimously, all of the philosophers I asked said that an atheist does not have to believe the universe popped into existence out of nothing if they accept the Big Bang Theory. Quentin Smith wrote to me, and I quote, "I agree with Graham Oppy that William Lane Craig is just relying on slogans, especially when he uses out of nothing, nothing comes." And Quentin Smith in that quotation was referring to Graham Oppy, a Australian philosopher who had written, quote, "I think that this is an instance of Craig's, and by extension Dr. Fernandes, reliance upon slogans. What atheists should want to say is that the universe has no cause. There is the universe, and that's all. There is nothing in this which conflicts with the idea that nothing comes from nothing, because the universe doesn't come from anywhere." And I could produce you an entire page and a half of quotations from virtually every atheist philosopher in the English-speaking and industrialized world who denies what Phil Fernandes says that they believe. He didn't address at all my point about no reason the universe, to believe the universe has a cause, because the universe is the origin of space and time, and he didn't address at all the point about the difficulties in accepting a theistic interpretation of the Big Bang. He dropped the argument about the continuing existence of the universe. The design argument was, unless I missed it, it was also dropped, so you would flow all of those counterpoints that I brought up as well. He dropped the moral argument. The next thing that he addressed was the absurdity of life without God, and he says he thinks this is very important. Outside of this room, outside of this debate, I agree with you, but that's why I addressed the point that life can have meaning even though there is no meaning of life. Again, there's a difference between ultimate meaning and personal meaning, and his response to that was, yeah, but if naturalism is true, there is no ultimate meaning. Right, I agree with that, but you never denied the fact that there's personal meaning. He says that Russell believed, and again, the point about Bertrand Russell is a case in point. He says that Bertrand Russell says there's no ultimate meaning if naturalism is true. Exactly. I've been granting that from the beginning of this debate, but my point is that naturalists believe that there is personal meaning in life, and he can discount that, but I think I speak for most naturalists when I say that personal meaning is more than enough to satisfy us. If Dr. Fernandes doesn't find personal meaning satisfying, that's fine, but we do find it satisfying, and he shouldn't just dismiss that.